Hi everyone, my name is Holly and I'm one of the team at Rework here. I'm delighted to be joined today by Brian Ames, who's a senior technical program at Starbucks. So Brian leads the team who built DeepBrew, and that is their AI and machine learning platform. So Brian's here today to talk to us about how he started that, how it's going, and the kind of the project in between, and also kind of a bit about what keeps them up at night as well. So I hope you enjoy the discussion. So hi Brian, we're going to kick off by just kind of, if you can actually just briefly introduce yourself and your role as well, that would be great.
Sure. First, it's so nice to be here with everybody. Welcome to the conference. I hope you're having a great time. I am the person who leads the team that sort of runs the platform for artificial intelligence at Starbucks. That platform was started maybe 3.5 years ago from a whiteboard session, and it was my job to make that whiteboard into reality. So with a small team, we built the entire solution in Azure, went through all the twists, turns, curveballs, late nights, painful sessions, and the victories along the way. And we have a really good baseline now, and there's a very positive future for artificial intelligence at Starbucks. So delighted to be here with everybody.
Yeah, brilliant to chat to you. So exactly what is DeepBrew? Where did the idea come from initially? What kind of looking to solve, and why exactly is it important?
Yeah. So we are a very unique culture at Starbucks, in that we had a visionary leader for many years, Howard Schultz. So he built this concept from the ground up, and now we have, 30,000 stores around the globe, and quite an impressive brand and a wonderful company. But a few years ago, he decided that he was going to retire. And the entire organization saluted him and wanted to say thank you, but they were like, well, how are we going to replace that brilliance and keep this thing going? And the answer was, we're going to use a ton of data, and we're going to use a great analytics, and we're going to use as much compute power as we possibly can. We're going to pour in a lot of smart people, and we're going to try to make data-driven decisions. And so the entire culture of the organization started to pivot from, hey, one person's got a great idea, and he's going to guide everything, to, we've got to democratize this decision-making, and we have to make data available to people, and we need to get smarter about how we use the data. And into that world came this whole notion of, well, artificial intelligence is changing the world on so many fronts. How can it change the world of coffee, and how can we leverage that to make people's experience with Starbucks better?
Change the world of coffee, you definitely have.
Right.
Yeah. So Brian actually first joined us, luckily, at one of our conferences in 2020, and you shared a kind of update on your project with Sven, which is here. But I'm really interested to know now, if anyone is in the audience who did that presentation as well, what's happened over the past year, especially with COVID, what have you been up to, what progress have you made?
Yeah. So just to recap for everybody, 3.5 years ago, almost nobody thought artificial intelligence could even exist at Starbucks. And so when I last presented, we were talking about how we had achieved a few milestones, which is we had proved the concept can work. We had proved that we could master cloud computing and make this thing respond to millions of requests per day at sub 200 milliseconds. And that was a big technical breakthrough, and maybe we were going to make tens of millions of dollars per year using artificial intelligence. That was sort of the hope. Well, over the last 18 months, we've really turned the corner. So at that point, when we last spoke, we were making, and we were lucky to be making this, we were given the opportunity to serve 1 billion recommendations per year and learn from that. Well, as of right now, we're serving over 10 billion recommendations per year, and the use cases are proliferating. So we have a huge demand to take this platform and start to pour in a lot more models. And so the teams are scaling up, we're maturing our people, process, and technology, and we're really leaning into it. So a culture shift has taken place on the back of good technology, good economic outcomes, and reliable artificial intelligence.
Wow, that's fantastic news. So within all those kind of new things, then what is it that's keeping you up at night? Is it the changing culture? Is it the cloud computing? Is it new use cases? What's kind of on your mind?
Well, I'll tell you one of the things that we're asked frequently, and I'll get to what keeps me up at night, but this is the predecessor. Is that artificial intelligence worked well enough that the CEO of Starbucks, Kevin Johnson, started to report this out to Wall Street. We're going to do this, that, and the other thing, and it's going to be really helpful to what he said is it's going to uplift the everyday. He said this isn't about artificial intelligence. This is about making our customers have a nicer time at Starbucks. It's about freeing up our baristas to do less administrative tasks so they can make more connections. It's about simplifying operations. But it's also about things like keeping this corporate sustainability, but like global environmental sustainability commitment front and center. And so what keeps me up at night intellectually is how are we going to build the economics of this brain? How are we going to make the artificial intelligence able to use standard artificial intelligence concepts, but build the reward structure behind it so it can encourage people to move to plant-based creamers instead of cow's milk? These are the big challenges that are in front of us. How can we really start to make a brain that matches the intent, the corporate intent of a company like Starbucks? And that's a wonderful challenge. I love being up at night thinking about that. But then there's also the reality of artificial intelligence, which we've learned painfully, and that is it's like having a living being. It needs constant care and feeding. And I was talking to Holly even this morning, I was up at 3 a.m. because we were launching a new feature into the mobile app. And when we do that, it goes to 30 million people, basically. And so here we have our little entity, and it's going to talk to 30 million people, and it's like it's at its first day of school. So it's my job to make sure that everything goes well. So there are a lot of late nights and just making sure that everybody's happy. And in artificial intelligence, so many things need to go well that you really need to be on top of a lot of domains to be successful.
Wow, I can't even begin to imagine if that was my first day at school.
Right, pressure.
I was just saying that it's really interesting that you're kind of incorporating into podcasts and projects that the corporate ideals in terms of sustainability as well, which actually brings me on to my next question. In terms of big breakthroughs that other people might not know about and projects that aren't particularly in the public eye, but things that people should know about, can you share any of those with us at all?
Yeah, I wanted to take a moment to talk to all my fellow practitioners here about sort of a cultural change and a realization that we've had at Starbucks. And I wanted to reference a very important article that we use as sort of like it's our main reference for this journey, and it's called The Hidden Technical Debt in Machine Learning Systems, or something like that. Holly has a slide, and she has a link to the white paper that was written on this topic, and I think that she's going to post it into the chat. But what it talks about is that a common misconception is that if you hire a few brilliant data scientists and they create a model, that you've actually won most of the battle in creating an artificial intelligence application. And our experience at Starbucks and my experience is that it's a wonderful, critical, of course you need to have it, and boy, isn't it fantastic. It's an element, but it's a very small element of what needs to happen for you actually to take this to production and have it facing customers every single day, 24 hours a day, and never failing. These are two wildly different skill sets, and so what we're learning at Starbucks and what we're trying to do in order to scale is we're separating our responsibilities out into two things, which is really the creation of the artificial intelligence core model, and then a notion that is not just data ops, it's not just ML ops, It's not just DevOps and standard operations. It's what we call model ops, or what the industry is calling model ops. This model ops concept allows us to bridge the gap between all of these different domains. So in a large matrix organization like Starbucks, we tend to have silos, and those silos are very happy to do their job extremely well, but silos have gaps between them. Where artificial intelligence might have different needs that the organization simply hasn't anticipated, that we need to be excellent, have engineering excellence all the way through a tagging system, for example, and all the way through latency, all the way to a customer experience in a number of touch points. So the example, Holly asked, like, what are some of the other breakthroughs, and how did COVID impact DeepBrew? Well, the entire world stopped going to Starbucks stores internally. They stopped walking into the store. And what everybody started to do is they started to go through these drive-throughs. And it put tremendous pressure on our drive-throughs. I remember that, like, COVID happened, and I remember seeing circulated from the C-suite a picture, like an aerial image of a line that was like a quarter-mile long trying to get to a Starbucks drive-through, because that's what represented normal for people in this community. And Starbucks was one of the few stores that was open. They managed this really brilliantly. But Starbucks is based off of compassion. There are some very wonderful people in the leadership roles, and they were almost emotional about how wonderful that was, but how frustrating it must have been for the person who was waiting for a long time. And so what they asked us to do was to implement artificial intelligence in the drive-through and go from being in just a few test stores to in 4,000 stores in a matter of 60 to 90 days. That's a lot of pressure on anybody, but including an artificial intelligence system. And we're currently working on what we call a throughput model, which is determining how long that line is, and then only presenting recommendations for things that are quick to prepare. So we're trying to act like a smart store manager that says, hey, it's really busy. Everybody just make people, let's get people through here as quickly as possible so we can satisfy more people. So in those worlds, we needed many teams inside of Starbucks. You know, there's 50 different people that I need to talk to make sure that every step and every hop is working just perfectly. So a customer, when they drive up, they see the exact right thing. And then that is all tagged. So every night we can do reinforcement learning and say, here's what we learned today. So the notion of model ops is what gives you the authority to say the artificial intelligence model might be working perfectly, but the ecosystem needs to be immaculate as well. And so that's the journey that we're on right now, separating out these two tasks that in tandem really get you good results.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. First of all, I didn't know you were using reinforcement learning, so that's really good.
Oh, yeah.
Really exciting. Seeing I think it applied is incredible, especially obviously outside its kind of initial sphere in the gaming industry. But so in terms of the challenges, obviously you mentioned model ops. There is something that you're trying to bring all those and not, people not working in silos, bring everything all together in cohesive workflow. Would you say that is your biggest challenge, or can you share some?
Well, your audio is breaking in and out, so I'm going to just repeat the question. What is the biggest challenge that's facing us going forward? I wanted to take 1 minute and just go back, because Holly brought this up, and I maybe I should have mentioned this. But the great fun of Starbucks is that we have tens of millions of customers that are interacting with us every single day. And we have almost perfect information that's coming back from this mobile app. So it's sort of like a data scientist delight. I mean, you could almost not make up a better scenario for a data scientist and a better application for reinforcement learning. And so we tend to, in the DeepBrew platform, we tend to not do supervised learning applications. You can do those in other platforms, but my platform, the DeepBrew platform, is really designed for reinforcement learning, where we focus on things. So we have Thompson sampling for certain things, but we have a wonderful, and I love the team and I love the technology, and everybody I think will probably be delighted, but we have a DQN that is absolutely fantastic, and that's what handles the digital drive-through. So if anybody's out there and you're going to get your caramel macchiato or whatever at one of those drive-throughs, and you happen to see our drive-through interface, that's a DQN that's processing hundreds of features every single day. It's getting retrained and it's going out and it's trying to learn the identity of that store. And in the future, like the big challenge in the future is it breaks into two categories. One is, how do we get the brain more information, right? So there are conversations about, well, if a person were to declare their identity, or if we could get more specific about who was in the drive-through lane, boy, we could probably make the experience even faster and better for people. There's a big brand promise from Starbucks that we will not do anything to impinge on anybody's privacy or to make them feel uncomfortable. So we're not there yet, but if there was an opt-in program and people wanted to use it, boy, the brain can get a lot better. And the future there is sort of getting more data in, building a better economic model behind it. How can we reward the system for a throughput model? You have to recreate all the reward system. But then the last piece is really how do we scale? How do we bring in many more people and all these new applications? So you create the platform, you create the environment, and you want to welcome everybody in. But you also are making a promise to the world that you're going to be up 99.n% of the time and you're going to be lightning fast, which means that it puts a lot of pressure on the quality of the code. So we've built a system that is able to allow people to check in their code into Git, but then it goes through our gates. And we're gauging the quality of code now, and we're doing a lot of refactoring and educating people about how you actually build for a real-time reinforcement learning system. It's a big challenge, and it's like climbing Mount Everest, and we're going to do it.
Yeah, certainly is. But again, like more data, better. So that's a good thing as well. Every data scientist dream. I'm conscious we've only got a few minutes remaining, so if we'd like to move on to some questions from the audience. So the first question is, are there any stakeholder concerns with AI being implemented?
Oh boy. Yes. It's hard to even know where to begin. There's a concept of the innovator's curve, right? And so there are certain stakeholders inside of Starbucks that are all about innovation, and they're all in. Here, let's build a POC, let's build X, Y, and Z. But there are other people that are much further behind on the curve, and they do have a lot of concerns. And one of the things that we have to fight is what we would call like the interpretability of the model. How do they know what it's doing? How do they make sure that it's up to their standards? And so we do spend a lot of time building basically a UAT system, a user acceptance testing system, where they can see that we're doing the right things across all these different dimensions. And so Starbucks has a lot of variables, and they have a very particular way that they want to do things. Welcoming, wonderful, inclusive, accessible, adhering to a number of business rules. And so we really need to make people comfortable. So there are certain times when we just really have to gear what we're doing to our internal stakeholders. Now, the unspoken truth about artificial intelligence systems is if you do it extremely well, it will create like an autopilot. And the same way that autopilot systems impact the amount of pilots that you need, it occurs to people that, hey, this is going to change the composition of my team over time. And so what we want to do is ensure people that this autopilot is going to save their team time so they can move on to the higher level tasks. And we do spend a lot of time being very intentional about saying that this is not intended to take anything over. It's intended to uplift your experience as an internal Starbucks employee so you can move on to these higher level tasks. But it's a great question, and there are a lot of dimensions to it, but it takes a lot of time and attention for sure.
Yeah, thank you for that answer, Brian. Unfortunately, I think we're out of time as all good things happen so quickly. Firstly, I'd like to apologise for any issues with audio, but thank you, Brian, for joining us. It really is our pleasure, and we're honoured. Yeah, there are a couple more questions. Thank you. Yeah, there are a couple more questions from attendees, which after the session ends, Brian has the option to answer those by typing an answer back. So I will kind of leave that up to Brian. But thank you everyone for joining us, and have a good day and enjoy the rest of the week.
Best of luck to everybody. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here with you.
Bye.